That's the thing, though, is whenever somebody tells me, like, oh, you think it was really funny if you were high, I'm really like, great, but that should not be the criteria for a movie. Because you know what else I enjoy when I'm high? Everything.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane...
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I am one of your three hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene Master Control Lyons.
Greetings, programs.
And each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The audience selects from 6 movie choices that we then break out a race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of each podcast, the three of us will provide you, the audience, the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, and Game of Thrones. And you can check us out everywhere, including iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever fine podcasts are found. That being said, Big D, what movie are we doing this evening?
Well, the category was one that's near and dear to my heart. It was movies that either became a video game or video games that inspired a movie. And the contestants were Double Dragon, Wing Commander, Street Fighter, Super Mario Brothers, Mortal Kombat, or the winner with 700 votes out of the 1,800 total was the 1982 Disney classic Tron.
Yeah, I don't know how Mortal Kombat lost this vote. I'm really disappointed that we're not doing Mortal Kombat tonight.
It's funny because when this vote came up, I said, of course Tron. Like, how are you going to not choose Tron? It's the only one that's like a verifiable classic. It's got Disney behind it. It spawned an entire, movement in video games and arcades. After watching it, not so sure.
I'm not going to pull the Roger Roper and give my review before we've even heard the trailer. But yeah, I thought Tron, no brainer. Now, I'm not so sure. Maybe Carrie Gross was on all the different computers in the hospital with the multiple IP addresses. And she's like, Jeff Bridges is cute. I'll vote for this one.
Gene, you're a goth. You go to goth clubs. You like to go clubbing still in your late 30s. Do they ever play Tron on the on the walls of goth clubs? I feel like this is a movie that visually would be appealing if I'm in an underground basement somewhere dancing to Kraftwerk.
Yeah, surprisingly, no. Although you got to understand, there's many subgenres of the under the goth umbrella, right? So the goth / industrial is usually the term that they use now, and so the industrial kids then have their own subsects. And among like rivet heads, those are like the more like hardcore industrials, whatever. And then you've got the gravers, the goth ravers, and at a graver event, you might see Tron. But generally speaking, where Carrie and I hang out, it's more of a kind of a swamp goth, I would say. I think not so much.
I'm exhausted just hearing you describe those subsects. It makes me glad I want to stay home tonight.
Yeah, swamp goths is what we call the goth kids here in Florida. But every time we talk more about goth culture, it reminds me of the Blade movies, how each Blade sequel, Blade fought a different type of vampire.
Yeah.
So in a way, Blade is the most accurate depiction of goth culture.
Especially with the sprinklers that shoot blood. Bloodbath! Totally.
Well, Tron is a 1982 American science fiction action adventure film written and directed by Steven Lisberger from a story by Lisberger and Bonnie McBird. The film stars Jeff Bridges as a computer programmer who is transported inside the software world of a mainframe computer where he interacts with programs in his attempt to escape. Bruce Boxleitner, David Warner, Cindy Morgan, and Bernard Hughes all star in supporting roles. The development of Tron began in 1976 when Lisberger became intrigued with the early video game Pong. He and producer Donald Kushner set up an animation studio strictly to develop Tron with the intention of making it an animated film. However, Lisberger decided to include live action elements with both backlit and computer animation for the actual feature-length film. The film was a moderate success at the box office and received positive reviews from critics who praised the groundbreaking visuals and acting. However, the storyline was criticized at the time for being incoherent. Tron received nominations for Best Costume Design and Best Sound at the 55th Academy Awards and received the Academy Award for Technical Achievement 14 years later. Over time, Tron developed into a cult film and eventually spawned a franchise which consists of multiple video games, comic books, and an animated television series. A sequel titled Tron Legacy, which was directed by Joseph Kosinski, was released December 17th, 2010, with Bridges and Boxleitner reprising their roles and Lisberger acting as producer. It was followed by the animated series Tron Uprising, set between the two films.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned the reviews, Raj, because this film reviewer I never really heard of, some guy named Roger Ebert.
Who?
He gave this thing 4 stars at the time when it came out. And he said, I mean, again, puts you in the mindset of 1982. He says, the interior of a computer is a fine and private place, but none, I fear, do their embrace except in Tron, a dazzling movie from Walt Disney in which computers have been used to make themselves romantic and glamorous. Here's a technological sound and light show that is sensational and brainy, stylish and fun. People were fucking stupid in 1982.
Roger Ebert is a hack.
We always ask the question, where were you? What are your memories of this movie the first time you saw it? We'll start with you, Gene.
Okay, so I'm embarrassed to say, I saw this as a kid, and I was a huge fan of the video game. I must have played it for hours. I just remember this being such a good movie. And then later I saw Tron Legacy at age 30, and I saw the effects in that movie, which somehow then retroactively warped my memories of the first Tron. It made me think that it was very slick visually and very technologically advanced and very clever. And so I think between the two, I had this odd notion that Tron was far more advanced than it really was in 1982. Although I was, again, it's still a technological feat, but not as good as I remember.
Oh my God. I just thought of something. In 2010, we were both 30 years old. 2010 doesn't seem that long ago.
It does not seem that long ago.
It's that memory issue you have. That
Holy
zip file,
smokes.
like those 8 years are basically about 2 weeks in your mind.
Yeah. For me, this Tron was perpetually on Laserdisc during extended day in public schools. Did you guys have working parents? Were you ever subject to extended day, the public school aftercare program?
Well, Raj, I only had a mom, so thanks for bringing it up.
Wow.
You're welcome.
But I did have a working parent, and I spent a lot of time in school. People are like, oh, you got to seem to be a really advanced kid, very gifted, well educated. I just spent my entire life at school is why.
That's right. Yeah, I had to do the extended day program. I would watch all my friends get on the buses and get to go home at 2:00, and I had to stay after school until 5:30. In most cases, 6:15. I was the last kid picked up because my parents, my mom would sometimes forget that she had to come pick me up. So I spent a lot of time watching this movie on Laserdisc.
Mama Roper needed her wine time, I guess.
She had to go to Bennigan's to get me a new stepdaddy.
Exactly. So for me, I was 9 at the time. I was a huge Star Wars sci-fi fan. So obviously I love Tron. And I want to show you guys, you're not going to be able to see this in the podcast, but what I have in my hand.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Is that an original light bike?
That is an original yellow light bike. And also,
wow.
Look at that. So on my desk, I have my original, when I was a kid from 1982, my yellow light bike. It's missing the zip cord that you pull out to make the wheel go. I have a red guard, the glitch guard. I remember loving this movie, but mostly I loved that video game. I would always drive my little BMX bike to the local pizzeria, and they had the standalone cabinet. I would go through whatever quarters I could steal from my dad's little change drawer in his dresser. But whenever I would run out, I'm going to admit to another crime here that I've never admitted to before. Around this time, USA Today launched as a newspaper. And it was an unconventional newspaper box. Instead of like just pulling the arm down and the papers were there, it looked almost like it was like a TV set. So it was all self-contained. I somehow realized if you stuck your hand in and reached to the right behind the papers, the coin tray was designed and hidden, and they were never locked. So for about a year and a half, I would empty the local 5 USA Today boxes of all of their quarters and go put them into Tron. That's how much I loved it.
And now we got reporters getting kicked out of press briefings. So
Well,
Right.
you started it, Big D.
Well, just put a lock on it. It's not my fault. I'm a creative kid.
Well, that being said, Big D, play the trailer.
I've got a little challenge for you, Sark. A new recruit.
What kind of program is he?
He's not any kind of program, Sark.
Name's Flynn. I'm what you guys call a user.
Users wrote us. The user even wrote you.
I'd like to go against you and see what you're made of.
Where am I? You're guest. The master control program. Gonna make you play video games. I play video games better than anybody. Come on, big fella, let's see what you got.
You'll regret this.
Who's that guy?
That's Tron. He fights for the users.
Oh man, this isn't one of all the things that's happening. The guy was asking about you. Something different about him.
You are a user.
And everything you've done has been according to a plan.
I want him in the games until he dies playing.
Now for some real user power.
I don't know how you survived. There's a Terminator.
On the other side of the screen, it all looks so easy. Tron? You really think the users are still there?
The users can no longer help us. We lost.
My user wants me to go after the MCP. There's just 3 of us.
You should have joined me. We made a great team. No!
There's nothing special about you. You're just an ordinary program.
So are you. One that should have been erased.
Send out every game tank in the grid. Get out of here! Where's the program?
You are making me talk.
Finish the game! No! Nothing.
End of line.
Kevin Flynn is a leading software engineer who runs a video arcade and attempts to hack into his former employer, Incom's mainframe system. However, Incom's master control program halts his progress. Programmer Alan Bradley and his girlfriend, engineer Laura Baines, discover that the MCP has closed off their access to projects. When Alan confronts the senior executive vice president, Ed Dillinger, Dillinger claims that the security measures are an effort to stop outside hacking attempts. Dillinger discovers the MCP has expanded into a powerful virtual intelligence, and the MCP blackmails Dillinger with information about his plagiarizing Flynn's games.
So I mentioned how much I love the game, and I think there's a lot of fans of the Tron video game. I can remember the first video game I ever played. There was a local burger joint called the Ground Round, and they had Space Invaders, and this was 78 because I looked it up. It blew my mind. It was like nothing I had ever seen. Do you guys, because you're younger than me, did you go to arcades or did you always have the consoles at home?
Oh yeah, absolutely went to arcades. We had nickel arcades, I think, when I was like in the prime of my gaming days. So it was like the sort of place where you went in, you paid like $5 or $10 to get in, and then all your games were nickel. And so I would play Sunset Riders, NBA Jam. Those were like my 2. I actually won a couple NBA Jam tournaments. And then now in life, the arcades are making a huge comeback though, Big D. So right now, Killer Queen is my game of choice, but there are barcades in every major city and some smaller cities too.
Yeah, there was definitely arcades in Orlando, Florida that I would go to, but they were like legit. Like you spent a ton of money, and I feel like I was in the getting ripped off arcade because they had all the games set to the most difficult level, and it like cost $1 each. I remember putting in all my quarters to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Losing a lot of money there. Remember, what was it? Fantasy Quest which one?
Final Fantasy?
No, not Final Fantasy. It was Dungeon Quest, Dragon Quest. It was like the cartoon version, and you had to like turn the joystick in a certain way.
Yeah, Dragon's Lair.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Dragon's Lair. That's it.
Yes.
Dragon's Lair.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I spent a lot of money at arcades. I was an only child, and I was a fat kid and a smart kid, and I wore glasses. So every birthday up until I was 16 years old was at the arcade.
Yeah, you mentioned Dragon's Lair. That was cool. I don't think anyone under maybe 30 is going to know what that is. It wasn't even like animated graphics. It was like a laser disc. It was like a choose your own adventure, like the book. Like you'd hit where he'd come out and you'd try to time your hitting of the joystick to make him jump to the right, or he'd get killed and turn to a skeleton and fall to the ground. But I loved Tron. That Spy Hunter was a huge, I mean, I could play that thing all day, shooting the oil. You had the smoke screen. But I think my favorite out of all of them was Joust. It's kind of like Killer Queen, where you tap to make the little bird fly.
Yeah, that's always when people want to play Killer Queen, which, by the way, if you haven't played it, go to your local barcade, find Killer Queen, get involved. It's awesome. 5-on-5, B game. But Big D, Joust is the example that we use. People are like, how do you play this game? Like, it's like Joust on crack, basically. But all those games that you mentioned, Big D, all super tough. Spy Hunter was tough. Mm-hmm. Dragon's Lair was super tough. Joust is tough, and Tron wasn't easy either. Tron, you had to like specialize in one game that you're good at in the multiple games that Tron offered.
Yeah, but were you guys like me in that you thought that this was all about an arcade game and that there was not like this missile defense mainframe storyline going on as well? Like I was pretty lost in the plot of this movie.
Raj, from the get-go, I actually wanted to rewind the movie because I thought that, so I was over at King B's house and he like pirated it, and I was like, I think you missed a part of this movie. Like, I think you missed the beginning of it. I wanted him to find the other file that was like the beginning of the movie, because from the beginning was lost. And normally, when we're watching movies and reviewing movies, I'm always like, don't give me so much exposition. I'm not an idiot. You don't need to establish everything. In this movie, from beginning to end, I just kept asking myself, what the hell is going on?
But what's funny about this movie is it hit me. We always talked about the progression and development of the terrorists, that in the 80s, you had the Russians, and then it went to the Middle East. Back in the early 80s, we didn't have a nation or geographic foe. So in these...
Are you kidding me? I'm
talking about
the Russians.
Yes, but I'm talking about that was a little bit later. In the early 80s, if you look at the movies.
No, the early 80s was like the height of the Cold War. What are you talking about? And the Ayatollah?
Listen.
Iran?
Yes. You're correct there.
Okay.
That was all just a misunderstanding.
That was just a misunderstanding. Yeah, that wasn't. But I'm talking about in film. Okay. You had Red Dawn, but in the early 80s here, with the development and the rise of technology, people were afraid. Nobody had personal computers. Everything you saw was a mainframe, like a big company. And people were obviously afraid of change, because you think of this and then another hit right around it was war games, where technology and big corporation, that was the antagonist of the early 80s movies.
Well, we've done already another computer early 80s movie in Weird Science on the podcast. Go back and listen to it. It's really raw. It was our sixth episode or
no, that was number 2.
We apologize.
That was number 2.
Was it number 2?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We apologize for those listeners who had to bear with us through that entire episode.
Yeah.
We're sorry you're listening now.
Yeah.
But it was even worse back then. So anyway, there's a slew of movies that are around the same time that deal with technology and the fear of it, like you said. But it's interesting, Tron, is this what people thought computers were and programming was? Like, oh, I've got my program. I'm going to send in my anthropomorphic version driving a tank, and he's talking to little memory bites and having conversations. Is this what people thought computers were?
I mean, I don't think people knew what to make of computers. I mean, I remember as a kid, I think my C64 was my first computer that I owned, and then it was like an Apple IIe. And it was like magic to me. I mean, I didn't understand any of it. And what's funny about it is right now, we look back and we go, oh, those video games, those computers were so basic. Well, fucking build one then. Like, why don't you code a game for me? Yeah, see, it's like no, we still don't know how any of this shit works. It might actually be just like Tron. There might be little guys in tanks inside of there. I don't know.
Yeah, the only difference back then, because I also had a Commodore 64, so you had to code everything. there was no graphic user interface. So you didn't have a concept of what it was, the terminology that they use in this movie. Program, hard drive, RAM, data. Nobody knew. It was a big mystery. And Tron just took that and ran with it.
Yeah, but people are always talking about the special effects of this movie. I like how, at least from a plot perspective, it seemed that the Master Control predicted the rise of China. When he's like, I am bored with corporations. I desire learning. I've already tapped into Russia. But for some reason, it hasn't been fed the Chinese language disc. And it like gets mad at Dillinger and is like, bring me the Chinese language disc. But it's weird because early 1980s China, not as nearly as advanced as it is today. So this movie, I think, does a good job of predicting what China eventually would come, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, but the thing with the Chinese language disc is that it's very carb heavy, and then also you just need another Chinese language disc in like an hour or so.
Right. You feel it's all the MSGs, really.
Yeah, and you talk about the special effects, and let's go back to how they created this movie. Yeah, it looks digital. It's a whole digital world that the actors are running around, but it was done in a completely analog technique. All the in-computer scenes were shot in black and white, and the sets were all just blacked out with the white tape that defined the edges so you could see them. They had on hockey helmets, white leotards. They drew the circuits on their chests with Sharpies, and then at the end, once they shot the film, they sent it off and had every frame hand tinted to do the color on the whether you're the blue, the red, the world. This was all done painstakingly by hand, frame after frame. The computer that they used to create Tron, all the scenes, the light bike, was 2 megabytes of memory and 330 megabytes of hard drive storage space. Keep that in mind when you watch this movie or when we review it.
Also, just as a point, 330 megs of hard drive in 1982 must have cost like $1 million. That memory was crazy expensive. But I'm glad you mentioned that, Big D, because as you're watching this, I will say one thing about Tron that I did really enjoy was I've never seen anything before or after it that looked quite like this. That effect that they achieved with the people kind of being that grayed out, like sort of black and white, but then the vividness of the colors that were glowing. On its own, just from a visual standpoint, it is so remarkably unique. And I really do appreciate that. And I wish that the rest of the movie, plot-wise and acting-wise, could keep up with that level, because it could be a masterpiece.
Gene, you said that you watched a pirated version. What was the quality? Was it decent, or was it like kind of grainy?
Oh yeah, no, it was really good quality. I mean, you could definitely tell like it had that very aha take on me sort of quality to to the humans' faces in computer, but then the rest of the world had kind of that glow to it. I mean, it was really beautifully done. It was just the story, as I said, I couldn't follow it.
I said before we recorded that I always think of Jurassic Park, where they're talking about the scientists. They spent all the time thinking, can I do this? And not asking, should I do this? They were amazed that they could actually do it. And they didn't question, do we have the story to match? But it's so cool when you realize later on, as the characters get angry, the color of their suit changes. And that was done frame by frame. This is the equivalent of an animated film. It's incredible to watch. And it's like nothing we've ever seen, even till today.
Did any of you watch it on any psychedelic drugs?
Hell no.
Or anything like that?
I mean, I was drunk, but
I feel like this movie would be better on like some magic mushrooms, or if you drop some LSD or something like that.
That's the thing though, is whenever somebody tells me like, oh, you think it was really funny if you were high, I'm really like, great, but that should not be the criteria for a movie. Because you know what else I enjoy when I'm high? Everything.
Fucking Geico commercials are great when you're high.
Laura deduces that Flynn is the hacker, and she and Alan go to his arcade to warn him. Together, the three form a plan to break into Incom and unlock Alan's Tron program, which is a self-governing security measure designed to protect the system and counter the functions of the Master Control program. Before Flynn can get the information he needs to reveal Dillinger's acts, the MCP uses an experimental laser to digitize and download Flynn into the Incom mainframe cyberspace, where programs are living entities appearing in the likeness of the human users or programmers who created them.
So it's right about this point in the movie where I start to realize what it is that really pisses me off about this movie. And that it's doing a Disney thing. That Disney approach where they will take one genre of film, say be sci-fi or whatever, and then they hijack it, right? And in this case, they took fantasy, basically, try to make it sci-fi, and it doesn't work. And so I just started writing down all these questions that they leave unanswered that they only did for effect, right? So Master Control. Master Control is supposed to be this program that's written that gets out of control, right? Why does it have a personality? Why does it get angry? Like, I understand it can spawn intelligence, but what the fuck is the point of it having a personality or greed? And then you start thinking about like RAM. You know, there's like this whole joke like, oh, like RAM used to be an accounting program and now he's down here slumming it in the dungeons, right? Why is the accounting program playing a game? It doesn't make sense. It's only for character development. They force it. And then the one that really pissed me off is this sort of Alice in Wonderland sort of approach, which is the programs have to resemble their users. So like Alan's program looks like Alan. It's a little goofy. I think at the time they probably thought it was like very, very clever. But in hindsight, now that, again, that's what we do on this podcast, we talk about looking back. On hindsight, looking back at this movie, I realized that it's all ridiculous, pedantic, childish crap. And I was furious from about minute 20.
Wow, I think Gene's going to give this a 0 wipe. He's quite passionate. I thought it was kind of funny, the actuary program, that he's excited to continue talking about. He's like, hey, if you think about it with compound interest, but God, think of this. Flynn gets into the digital world. He doesn't recognize Dillinger. This is the guy he wants revenge again. He stole his notoriety. He stole his company. He doesn't recognize him. And then he's 2 feet away from Alan in the same cell. And he doesn't go, hey, Tron is Alan. So whether or not the programs have personality, this movie's got bigger problems than that.
Well, you talk about like how he doesn't recognize his buddy Alan. What's the relationship that's going on between the three of them? So Flynn is like this hotshot hacker that just gave it all up because, you know, he's got some sort of morals and, you know, he got, you know, fucked over by Dillinger. And so he just left it all behind. And now he's running this arcade and all that kind of stuff. But did he used to bang Laura and then,
yeah.
and then just brings it up right in front of Alan? But they're friends?
Right in front of him.
Yeah, no, he did bang Laura. He says to her in one of the only clever bits of writing, I guess, he says, Flynn had access to you too. Mm-hmm. He makes her vagina a data port, basically.
Yeah. Straight up. And if Flynn comes out of the bathroom, pulls his shirt off, you know, he's looking good. He sits down next to her. He's flirting with her throughout this whole movie. So I don't know if they were ever friends or they were just rivals. But, you know, Laura doesn't even pretend like she's not willing to have sex with him again.
And here's the thing is you could have actually just gotten rid of Alan's character and made Laura like a competent engineer and have her be Tron's creator. She has a relationship with Flynn. It's much more interesting at that point. Alan is completely unnecessary.
So another one of the characters that we meet here briefly that I kind of found myself liking was Dr. Gibbs. And Dr. Gibbs, he's played by, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's one of those universal like grandfathers. He plays like the wily sage who's always going to, you know, impart some knowledge. And he has the only true prediction besides Rogers, you know, The Rise of China. When they're talking about the laser and about the future of technology, he says, computers and programs will start to think for us, and then people will stop thinking. Won't that be something?
Yes.
He's 100% spot on.
Yeah. Dr. Gibbs was the one with the beard, right? He's the one that was hanging out in like the reverse 3D printer room.
Yeah. He also plays Dumont when he's inside the virtual world.
Because there's parts of him that are throughout the program.
Yeah.
When he's talking to Dillinger. He's one of the founders.
Yeah, he's the founder, it sounds like.
Right. Okay. Got it. But like, did you feel for every video game trope that this has with, you know, the hero and the villain and the users and all that, it's interesting that there were no like lasers. I thought I remember lasers.
Well, that's the Disney effect I think Gene's talking about. They Disneyfied this. And Leesberger, he had a policy of no guns. When he took on this project, he said, I don't want kids to be able to go home and emulate this. And he was against guns. So he said, I'm going to choose a Frisbee because that's something that would be better for them to go home and throw a Frisbee around. But think of how much better this movie would have been with a couple Star Wars type blasters.
I like how he's like, no guns, but tanks.
Yeah, tanks.
That's okay.
Yes.
Taking a laser spear and stabbing people with it, fine.
That's
people,
okay.
People plummeting to their death, totally okay.
Flynn learns that the Master Control Program and its second-in-command, Sark, rule and coerce programs to renounce their belief in the users. The MCP forces programs that resist to play in deadly games and begins pitting Flynn in duels. Flynn meets other captured programs Ram and Tron between matches. Partnered, the three escape into the mainframe during a light cycle match, but Flynn and Ram become separated from Tron by a Master Control pursuit party.
So I don't know if you guys feel the same, but in watching this movie, I'm looking at the characters. I'm going down the line of who's the real hero in this movie. And I think that they're trying to make it about Flynn. Flynn's kind of the star of the show, right? But I felt this movie would be better if it was about Tron. Like, I wish Tron were about Tron. He looks way cooler. He's brave. He's got that sort of stoicism to him. And I'd like to know more about him as a program. I just felt myself annoyed by every character, and kind of this calm came over me when I was watching Tron. He seems to be the only one that's like developing it all as a character, other than the MCP. So I don't know. I want to know more about him. I thought it was odd that he is the title character and yet not the main character in the movie.
Jeff Bridges is extremely charming outside of the video game. When he's outside, when he's inside, when he's wearing all that, I feel like some of that goes away, but it's the adverse effect when it's Bruce Boxleitner. And I don't know if that's intentional, where Alan's supposed to be cool because Alan in the program, like he's a traditional programmer, in the outside world, in the real life, he's kind of a dork. He's awkward, but cool guys like Flynn always get the girl, right? And he's left to get the scraps or the second, but where he really wants to reside, where he really sees his true self, is inside the computer and inside the program. And maybe that's why Tron was much cooler than Flynn was once he was inside.
I just want to point out that, Raj, your interpretation of the movie and actually even reading the plot is more interesting than the actual movie. I feel like people at home who haven't watched this movie in a while are going to go like, this actually sounds pretty good. Yeah, if you read the story, it doesn't sound too bad. As Raj describes what they could be trying to do with the movie, it doesn't sound too bad. But the movie itself stinks, except for the light cycles.
Oh, hell yeah.
The only part of the movie that didn't have me audibly groaning for an hour and a half was the light cycles. They had me like momentarily excited. They were imaginative, and one of like the few moments where like the action, the effects meshed well. It looked cool when the crashes and the colored lines following the cycles. I loved it.
Okay, but all right, so let's say we're playing a game. We're playing a video game. What is the light cycle game? Is it we have to draw lines and box the other one in to crash? Is that what
Snake.
it is?
It's Snake.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Snake. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'll go through this. The Tron game had I think 4 different mini games. One of them was the light cycles that you had to box the other person in. Then there was the spider board. There's the board where you're trying to climb up. I guess it's the end of the movie where you got to shoot up and clear the rainbow pieces. That stuff is great. Then you're also, I don't think there was that.
There was the Frisbee. There was the Frisbee game. I remember playing the Frisbee game.
Yeah, but the Frisbee game wasn't the original one. That was a second version where you played Frisbee.
Oh, interesting.
But the Frisbee, and I thought of this. I'm like, okay, Flynn is a normal adult man. He's in good shape. He's fairly athletic. He comes into this world, and they throw him into this highlight of doom. Okay, so laser highlight is his first attempt. It's dark as hell. You can barely see anything. And they put him on those boards. I don't think any normal person could get on that game and survive it. Impossible.
So I think what they're trying to do is kind of like the Matrix, is they're showing that he hasn't realized his potential yet, but as a user, he is more capable than a simple program, and he's tapping into some innate knowledge in himself that allows him to be superior. But I agree that even Neo needed some warm-up time. He didn't just jump into the Matrix and start kicking agents' asses.
Dude, I bet you if you put 2 of us on discs that size and had rings disappearing, I've tried to use a lacrosse stick with my nephew, and I look like I'm disabled. I can't throw it. It goes right into the ground. They have those highlight gloves, and they're just whipping it on angles. This is unbelievable.
Remember when they tried to make highlight a thing? You don't remember?
No,
remember?
I think that's just Miami.
Oh, got it.
No, there was an entire like Mad Men episode dedicated to that. This was going to be the sport of the future in America. There was all sorts of investment in it. And then they realized that it will kill you like half the time.
Hell yeah.
But good God, is this movie about theology? Like, I thought this was a fun Disney movie about light bikes and you're in a video game and it has a young Jeff Bridges shirtless at times. But then all of a sudden they're like, we're going to make you forget about religion. And they're all red. And that had me thinking, are the screenwriters and director trying to tell us, like, you know, this is the height of the Cold War. And there's also, a little bit of capitalism versus communism in every early 80s movie. Is the master control program trying to assimilate everyone like a communist regime would, and also reject the idea of religion? Meanwhile, you know, the users and all the little programs are basically the Americans, the freedoms, the one who, believe in God and believe in religion and believe in their users and the what they're programmed to do, and they're like little entrepreneurs. Like, is that what the movie's trying to tell us?
Well, I think you tapped into a key flaw of the movie, though, Raj, is that we're not clear on like what the hell the point is. And so it's really hard to have a villain when you don't understand what the villain's motivation is. And likewise, a hero, you're like, is he a hero? Like, as far as I can tell, Jeff Bridges' only purpose in there is to like prove that he invented the game. Like, he just accidentally got shot with a laser in a very Honey, I Shrunk the Kids sort of moment. And you're not really quite sure of why anyone's going through anything.
Well, while attempting to help Ram, who is wounded in the pursuit, Flynn learns that he can manipulate portions of the mainframe by accessing his programmer knowledge. Ram recognizes Flynn as a user and encourages him to find Tron and free the system before derezzing or dying. Using his new ability, Flynn rebuilds a vehicle and disguises himself as one of Sark's soldiers.
So I'm a pretty conceited and arrogant person. And whenever I watch movies, I'm like, oh, this heroic arc again. Oh, they're going to, you're going to have the guy is going about his life. And then he's going to have some sort of challenge. And he's going to overcome it. And then he gets the girl. Boring. And then I realize what happens when a movie doesn't do that. And it's called Tron. So like, I'm all for scrapping the typical heroic arc. But this movie seems to like want a heroic arc. Like, there's like, here's the hero, there's the girl, here's the challenge, but it can't find the arc. Like, I found myself repeatedly checking the time and going, seriously? There's still an hour left? There's still 40 minutes left? I was trying to figure out, based on time as a sort of benchmark of where the fuck in the movie I was supposed to be. I'm like, is this the end? Are we close to the end? What's happening?
It was almost at the end. I felt they just tried to fit the pieces together, even though they didn't make sense. I mean, not everybody was on board with this. Even at Disney, the animators didn't want to work on it. They felt threatened by the computer-generated images, and they thought that this was going to change their art, their craft, that traditional animators would be threatened and go out of work. So the producers had to go out of Disney's house to find people willing to work. So not everybody was pulling on this, and maybe the writers were not on board with the same plot and storyline.
I'm glad you brought that up, Big D, because, we talk a lot about movies where when you're watching it, you can tell they're having a good time. Like, you can tell, like, oh, I wish I could have been there. Beetlejuice, find an example. Mm-hmm. Like, you could tell that they were having a blast making that movie. Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Michael Keaton, they all were exuding this sort of energy, this magic. And in this movie, everyone is dead. It's like nobody wants to fucking be there. And I get you're inside of a computer hellhole, but like, I wanted even the heroes to feel some sense of triumph at some point.
Yeah. Speaking of dead, this is where I fell asleep for the first time in the movie because it gets really long in the tooth here and really bad. Again, it's like Matrix. It's the same it's a similar Matrix art where he discovers he has powers because he's a user and he has all these, the ability. But again, if it sounds exciting, it's not. This is worse than Blade Runner. I never thought that I would say it, but this is worse than Blade Runner.
Sometimes when we're reviewing a movie and we do some research, you find some information that you never wanted to know or needed to know. So I was looking up their outfits, those one-piece leotards, and I was wondering, why is Jeff Bridges the only character wearing like a sash, like a toga? And then I found some information that I didn't want to know, but I'll share it with you anyway. While they were filming, and then offset, they would go to the commissary. The staff felt uncomfortable with, let's just say, Jeff Bridges' special abilities that they asked them to actually change the costume. So Jeff Bridges, good for you, buddy.
He's got a light bike?
Yes. Yeah, it sounds like he's... I'm trying to think of a Tron weapon. Yeah,
He's playing highlight down there.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
All right.
I think light bike was the Tron reference that you needed.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Tron enlists help from Yori, a sympathetic program, and at an I.O. tower, receives information in his identity disk from Alan necessary to destroy the MCP. Flynn rejoins them, and the three board a hijacked solar sailor to reach the Master Control's core. However, Sark's command ship destroys the sailor, capturing Flynn and Yori, and presumably killing Tron. Sark leaves the command ship and orders its de-resolution, but Flynn keeps it intact by again manipulating the mainframe while Sark reaches the MCP's core on a shuttle carrying captured programs.
Okay, so we've been raving about the visual effects of how beautiful it is. Who the hell did the sound editing? It's awful. I understand that when this movie came out, there was no home, distribution channel for these films and people didn't watch them. But I have a Dolby surround system. It sounds good. The picture looks great. And the awful Foley work, it's amateurish. When they're walking down any hallway, it sounds like... And the echo, it's awful. Like the dialogue, I thought at first it was my setup. Like my speakers weren't in line with my TV. But did it bother you as much? Could you hear the hollow sound throughout the whole movie?
Yeah, I was watching on King B's, like just normal TV with a sound bar, and it was noticeably bad. In addition to that, I think the soundtrack wasn't terribly good either. I kept thinking while I was watching it, I was like, they just had to hire Kraftwerk, take a Kraftwerk album and just use that as the music for this. It was just this, dumb, droning, stupid synth. It was so predictable and unremarkable. I couldn't stand it.
Oh, there was one good song. I agree with you. It sounded like a kid got a hold of their parents' Casio keyboard and was just banging on it. But when that song, when they get onto the solar sail escape, the ship, I started to hear in the background the Tron theme from the video game, and immediately I got goosebumps, and I wished I was playing the game and not watching this movie. So that one song was good.
Doesn't Journey play at the end? Like in the end credits, that's a Journey song.
You stuck around for the credits?
I woke up at the credits.
Oh, that's why. Yeah. No.
But like,
maybe it was Journey with a G. Was this a different band?
No, I'm telling you, Journey is on the soundtrack for Tron.
Roger Roper is absolutely right. Journey is on I believe they're actually on the Tron Legacy and the Tron soundtrack. Separate Ways, I think, is on there. So
no, I hit stop as soon as the first person came up.
So we've established the plot sucks. We've established the music sucks, except for one song apparently. The audio work sucks. I gotta go for the fucking full Monty here and say that the cast is absolutely garbage. I withheld my opinion until the movie was over to go, is anybody gonna pop up that's likable? So now we've seen Ram, who's supposed to be funny but isn't. We've seen Dillinger, who is like a disappearing villain. We've seen Sark, who's supposed to be scary but isn't. We've seen Yori, who's like a useless female character that's there for like a forced, polyamorous subplot or something. And then they bring in Dumont and that weird dickhead that he's wearing. What the fuck is he even supposed to be? I was like, I literally said out loud as I was like, oh no. Like they went full Alice in Wonderland. This is like the Cheshire Cat sort of thing. The Mad Hatter. Pick your fucking character. It doesn't matter. But I was like, why does this guy, he's got like some weird, like low to the ground body with like a penis coming out of his head and he's guarding the tower. I'm like, I'm completely done with this movie at this point.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I blocked all this out. I don't remember any of this.
Oh, you talking about now or as a kid?
Like right now. I don't remember this part. It was really nice and warm. I was underneath some blankets. I was laying down on the couch.
Had a glass of white Zinfandel.
It was rosé, but yeah.
But let's remember, this is a kid's Disney movie, right? There's a part where I think it's Flynn, when he crashes that craft, he walks by two digital prostitutes. Am I right?
I think they were, women of the night, I think.
Okay. And then also, Tron and Yori, are they having sex? Is there a relationship between them?
I mean, I think that, Yori seems to be fond of both Tron and Flynn. There was I think she kissed both of them, right?
Yeah. So this implies that these programs are having sex.
Well, Yori is like Laura.
Right. But it makes sense in the real world. If I'm thinking these programs are having sex, are they creating new programs? Are they creating viruses? And it made me wonder, on my phone, which of my apps are having sex?
Well, assuming I'm pretty sure that all of your apps are for children. So I don't know. You tell us. You probably have. I am willing to bet that there is minimal overlap between your apps and Roger's and my apps.
Oh, yeah.
You have Bank of America. You have Bank of America, right?
I have USAA.
Oh, that's right. You're a vet. Let's see here. Twitter. You have Twitter. We both have Twitter.
Yep.
We have Instagram.
Yep. Facebook.
Snapchat.
No.
Crowdfire.
Yes.
Tinder.
No.
Nope.
Bumble.
No Bumble. Do you have Grindr?
Nope.
Yep, I have Grindr. Farmers Only.
Farmers Only. No.
Yeah.
J-Date.
J-Date.
Microsoft Teams.
No, but I have Slack and Trello.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think any of those are having sex.
No.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Facebook is fucking every other app on my phone. That's pretty much the case.
Google and Facebook by far are fucking us all because they're tracking every single movement that we have or that we're doing.
Raj, what was that app, that Facebook app that you were like, put this on your phone. It'll scan all of your photos and then tell you which ones you should send to me. What the hell was that one called?
God.
Moments or?
Yeah.
Was it Moments?
Wow, that was a weird...
I was like, the description alone, it's like, it'll just go through all your
Why
photos.
would you do that?
It'll tell you photos that have me in them, and then it'll suggest that you send them to me. I was like, why the fuck would I download that?
Hey, this might be a good time for me to recommend something. Netflix. Oh, it's actually Amazon Prime. There's a documentary called The Creepy Line. It is the term that Google uses in-house when they're developing a tracking mechanism where they say, does this cross the creepy line? If we were to track our user's menstrual cycle, would that be creepy? It follows Google and Facebook and what they do to manipulate. It's not fake news. It's not political. It is frightening. It's the first documentary I've seen in a while that has scared me. Watch it, The Creepy Line.
Also, if you go to the Creepy Line website, make sure you're sitting on a toilet because the intro part of it will probably make you shit your pants. You told me about it, Big D. I was in bed, naked as I usually am, and I'm like watching, and I was like, ugh. I like kind of threw the phone across the room. My dog got scared. It was bad.
Yeah.
You sleep naked all the time?
I mean, as long as I don't have house guests, yeah.
No. Interesting. I feel like sleeping naked is kind of like a special time. Like if there's someone over, it's Thanksgiving.
I do too. I'd want to light a candle, like some music playing.
Yeah.
I try to sleep the way I think Flynn would sleep.
Well, while the Master Control program attempts to absorb captive programs, Tron critically injures Sark. Flynn leaps into the beam of the Master Control program, distracting it. Tron attacks, sending the MCP's control over the mainframe and allowing the captured programs to communicate with users again. Flynn reappears in the real world, and a nearby printer produces the evidence that Dillinger had plagiarized Flynn's creations. The next morning, Dillinger enters his office and finds the MCP deactivated and the proof of his theft publicized. Flynn is subsequently promoted to CEO of Incom and is happily greeted by Alan and Laura as their new boss. End movie.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank Tron for inventing closed captioning because it seems to be that's all that table does in Dillinger's office is just writes down what MCP is saying. But the crazy thing is that after all this, after the light cycles and the dickheaded Dumonts and the solar sailors and the program shuttles and all this shit, here's what the story boils down to. Tron did his job as a program. Flynn gets a printout that somehow proves that he invented space paranoids, and Alan gets sloppy seconds with Laura. That's the whole story. That's what you get out of all this.
Dude, you couldn't have provided better proof. That was like 4 lines just printed randomly on a paper that said that he had plagiarized it. How about give me some video? How about give me some audio? In what court is that going to immediately get them to change the corporate structure? And then we get him coming in. Now he's the boss. Flynn's now in charge.
Yeah, when I was in 6th grade, I had this friend, Richard, and he stayed in from recess one day, and he sat on one of those Apple IIe computers, and he printed out a report card off the printer that he was going to give to his parents. And he's like, yeah, I got this. And his fucking mom didn't buy it for a fucking second. If Richard's mom isn't buying this, who, by the way, was a teacher, so he probably should have known better. If she's not buying this, then why? Who the hell is buying it? The press corps?
But hold on. So now he's back in charge. Not only do they couldn't just let him like sit behind the desk. We see a name card. Maybe the company name changed. They fucking fly him in like Airwolf.
Yeah, that helicopter flyby shocked the hell out. Like, I'm watching the whole movie like, I don't care. And then I'm like, whoa, look at that helicopter. Like, that's how hard up I was for entertainment by the end of the movie. This helicopter comes in way close to the building. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I realized that maybe I just wanted any movie other than Tron to be on. A movie about helicopters flying near buildings would have been fine.
They came in hotter than Nakatomi Plaza with those FBI agents, and they were terrorists in that building. This dude buzzes the tower and comes in and lands. But you know what? Again, there's no plot. They try to button this up so clean with like 10 seconds of exposition and whatever. I understand. It was all about the visuals and all about the special effects. And in the end, I think the work that they put in, and today watching it now, what are we, 46 years later? No, my math's way off. What is it?
Yeah, I'm fucking... Yeah, 36.
Okay, so 36 years later, and we think that this is groundbreaking. Even in its day, the Oscars snubbed them. They didn't give them a nomination for special effects because they thought using computers was cheating.
I would be fucking furious if I took the time to hand tint every frame of a movie, and they're like, well, you used a computer. Fuck you.
Exactly.
But like, how pissed off are you if you're Alan? Sure, you end up with Laura, but like, it was your computer that saved the company. You were Tron. You deserve to be the CEO, not the fucking slacker, hacker Flynn, who's looks good, shirtless. The real hero in this is Tron. He needs to be CEO, and Flynn needs to end up with Laura.
No, again, you're assuming that Flynn got out of the computer and told Alan the truth, that his avatar was the man. Bullshit. Flynn got out of the computer and was like, guess what? You know what? I saved the day. I killed the bad guys.
Hold on. He's not CEO because he defeated the MCP. He's CEO because he invented space paranoids. That's the point.
Yeah, but it was...
the proof is in the printout.
But it was the Tron program that was able to, like, kick Master Control Program's ass.
Right, but that didn't make him in charge. I'm talking about the fact that he's cock-blocking Alan again. He's going to come out and pretend like he's the hero just to steal Lori. So in the end, Alan's going to end up trying to...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Alan's going to...
You mean Yori?
Whatever, I'm so fucking confused. In the end, Alan's probably going to turn on Flynn too and try to take him down.
If only there was a sequel to this movie, we could figure out what happened. Well, now's the time of the podcast where we break out our Shat meters and give you our wipe scores. If you've never listened to the podcast before, 0 Wipes is a fantastic movie. 5 Wipes is a terrible movie. That being said, we'll start with you, Gene. How many wipes do you give Tron?
Raj, this movie's visuals are unmistakable, and I have tremendous respect for them, especially after Big D kind of enlightened us as to how this was all done. And the movie did the bold step of talking computers at a time when they seemed like magic. It tried to take that magic and fold it into something fantastic. But as I said before, I learned more from reading the plot synopsis online than I did from watching the entire movie. It's poorly written, it loops over itself, and it's just plain boring. So I can't say that it's a 5-wipe movie in the sense that artistically, I think it's gorgeous, and I've never seen anything like it. But it is certainly one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And if it weren't so pretty, it would definitely be a 5-wiper because there is no substance, no heart, nothing to like about it. So I'm going 4 wipes on this one.
Dick, how many wipes?
This movie made me sad. This is the saddest I've been out of the 89 movies we've done. We've done movies that have not lived up to what I remembered them, but this one was so bad. I want this portion of my memory to be erased. I'm sitting here looking at my light bike differently, looking at my toys differently. This is a bad movie. I would not want anybody to go and watch this. And I thought maybe, hey, am I being too hard? So to give myself, something to compare it to, I went back to another Disney sci-fi classic from '79, Black Hole, which I also remember really liking. And that movie still holds up. That's still pretty good. The plot is there. It matches what they're doing visually and with the special effects. Tron, they spent too much time trying to make it look like this other world and create this just wow factor that they didn't put the time into what really matters is a compelling story with characters that we care about. This one hurts me. It really, really hurts me. It is a 4-white movie, not due to a lack of effort, but just it is bad. Don't ruin your childhood. Stay away from this one.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. This movie is it's boring. It put me to sleep. If you're really looking for a movie where you dive into the video games and you get to see, how, the video games personalities come to life and all interact with each other, go watch Wreck-It Ralph.
Yes.
Fucking fantastic. Go watch Wreck-It Ralph.
Hell
it is so
yes.
much better than Tron. But I do have to say that they put an effort. This was groundbreaking at the time. It just doesn't hold up, and
It doesn't work.
It's not a good movie. But they painstakingly, as we outlined, tried to do something that was crazy. If you compare the special effects to movies that we've done on the podcast before, like The Last Starfighter, which has more heart but just terrible special effects. That's the only reason this isn't a 5-white movie, is because they fucking tried. And for that, it's a 4.5 white for me. It is. It's
a sad day.
Yeah, it's as bad as Blade Runner. It's as bad as Blade Runner. That being said, if we add up all the scores, 4, 4, and 4.5, that gives us what, Gene?
Raj, that gives us an average of 4.16 repeating, and this movie is way worse than Blade Runner.
Way worse. 100%. This made me want to watch Blade Runner. That's how bad this movie is.
It's in the same
neighborhood. Definitely.
Yeah.
So this is movie number 89 with a score of a 4.17. This now ties it in the 78 spot with Time Cop, Backdraft, Westworld, and Independence Day. So it is not the worst.
I'd watch all those movies before I'd watch Tron.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Unless I was at an underground goth club with my fellow.
No, but again, here, look.
What'd you call them? Gearheads? What are they?
Rivet heads or gravers?
Rivet heads. With my fellow rivet heads, if this was just playing on the wall somewhere, I feel like I would really like it.
But you got to remember, the reason why we gave this a better score than those is think of the time and effort they put into it. Yes, they fail, but they were bold, they were innovative, and they get credit for that. It just doesn't turn into something we'd want to watch again. But my memory of it's great, and hopefully in a week or two, I'll forget about this.
I mean, you literally could take almost any frame of this movie and put it on a wall somewhere, and it's art.
Yep.
But it's just not art that I want to watch.
Well, now's the time of the podcast where we break out our shout-outs and tell you what movie we're doing next week. Gene, what is a shout-out?
Raj, we've got a slew of contributions this week, so we're going to do that instead of shout-outs. Shout-outs, if you'd like to hear your name on the podcast, just go to shatthemovies.com, and you'll see a shout-out box. Put your name in there, and you will be able to hear your name on the podcast. Also on the site, you can make a contribution to the podcast if you'd like to help out. This week's contributions come from Mac, Martin, Carmelita, who's a regular donator, Bradley, Shane, C. Melvin, Emily, Jordan, Amanda, and the big one for this week, James. Thank you so much for all of your contributions to the pod. That helps us grow. And if you would like to also help us out in another way, you can go ahead and fill out the survey at survey.libsyn.com/shatthemovies. That's Libsyn, Libsyn. If you go there and fill out the survey, it's very brief. You don't have to fill out all of it. You can just fill out the parts that you feel comfortable with. Not that there's anything you should be uncomfortable with, but anyway, if you like to do that, that will help us get sponsors as well. So any of those ways helps, but thank you so much everyone for your help, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, filling out the Libsyn survey does not cross the creepy line.
Nope.
There's nothing that's crazy there.
Nope.
It doesn't want to know about your menstrual cycle.
What movie are we doing next, Big D?
So next week, we actually had one of our listeners step up and decided to commission one of my favorite movies of all time. It is the 1991 American action comedy film directed by Tony Scott, starring Bruce Willis, Damon Wayans, Chelsea Fields, Noble Willingham, and Daniel Harris. The film was released in the United States on December 13th of 1991. Stay to the end, listen to the trailer, and figure out what movie we're doing next week.
Yeah, it was the screenplay written by Shane Black.
Yep, and the listener was Edwin. So Edwin was the one who sponsored this. There's been a lot of love thrown his way on Twitter, so we appreciate it. This is going to be a good one, and I think this is the one that'll come out right around Thanksgiving, right?
No.
Yeah, the 21st. Yep.
No, we got another week, don't we?
No, the one we're recording today comes out roughly the 14th.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. All
yeah.
right.
So this movie will be your Thanksgiving special.
Well, that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us everywhere on social media and share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Just follow the handle @Shat the Movies. We're also on Facebook. Just search for Shat the Movies Podcast. Our website is shatthemovies.com, where you can vote for upcoming films. You can also email us your suggestions at hosts@shatthemovies.com. We're everywhere. Fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeartRadios, and much, much more. Subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, and Game of Thrones. You can find all the podcast back catalog episodes on the website, shatontv.com. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Gene, Master Control Lions, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for our review of this following commissioned movie. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, good night, and good luck.
This ain't no game, Flash.
Joe Hallenbeck's a private detective who's run out of luck.
If you touch me again, I'll kill you.
2 for 2.
Told you.
Jimmy Dix
I like Prince.
is an ex-quarterback who was thrown out of football.
Another tragic tale of wasted youth.
You're nobody.
Shh. Don't tell anyone.
They were trying to clean up their acts
You vacuum. I'll dust.
when they got dragged into the dirty world of sports corruption.
So you're gonna bribe some senators to legalize again?
Legalize sports gambling. Now,
Son, we're going to a ball game.
they've got one shot
What am I gonna do? Point at the bad guys and shoot!
to get the goods on the bad guys.
Just once, I would like to hear you scream.
Play some rap music. Not like these, man. Take your best shot.
If they don't kill each other first.
That was a bomb? Either that or a hell of a factory recall.
Bruce Willis, Damon Wayans, the last Boy Scout.
Danger's my middle name. Mine's Cornelius. Tell anybody I kill you.
It reminds me of like those like My First Science.
Yeah. What was it called? My First Podcast Kit?
It's called Podcast Studio. It's all Behringer stuff.
Does it give you instructions on like how to be a podcaster?
Yeah, it's like you can edit with Audacity.
Does it really say that?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Does it tell you like how to speak into the mic and be friendly and choose topics?
Smile with your eyes.
I missed that whole thing. Smize.
All right, here we go.
All right. Ready.
We are recording.